Content warning. Guys Will Be Talking is a podcast centered on media with some pretty dour subject matter. If you're particularly sensitive to any type of content, please check the content warning list linked in the description before continuing.
I don't know how you standardize a podcast intro, how you come up with a good standardized podcast intro. Already, I feel like in the episodes we've done, I feel like I'm already plagiarizing even more something rotten than we already are, just by me saying Jacob with the same intonation as Jake
As
Blake
Blake.
does.
It does not help that we have the same name. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I called myself at some point, I called myself host for some reason. And you my co-host.
I didn't.
That-
Yeah. It happens.
Why? Why did I think it's because I did the weird, like, let's fight a boss thing of, like, doing the intro a la John. But it doesn't work here. That's not what we're doing. I'm not we're both co-hosts. There isn't
Yeah. I mean, usually another podcast wouldn't really delegate co-hosts. They would have a host. And even if it's not the same host every time, generally the person doing the introduction and the formatting is the host. So, I mean, listen, you're the Shinsekai Yori expert here. You could be the host of this episode.
Yeah, I was definitely not the host of Lisa.
It's okay. It happens.
So anyway, welcome everybody to Guys Will Be Talking podcast. I'm Victor. With me
I'm Jacob.
is my friend. Nice.
Sorry, I interrupted
No,
you.
that was good. That way you will be able to mute me afterwards, or we just keep it all in all raw. That's the Guys Will Be Talking way. No editing, no standardizing of introduction, all raw, baby.
I mean, listen, I think like it's a general mindset you should be in to make art that you know is bad, because making bad art is better than making nothing. And I fully expect this for no specific reason. I fully expect this to be the worst episode of our podcast. And it's not that we've made fucking fantastic 10 out of 10 masterpiece work so far or anything, but you should put out 60 bad episodes of podcasting while you're learning to do it instead of waiting to learn to do it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Today's bad podcast presented by Guys Will Be Talking is about today's bad podcast is about the anime Shinsekai Yori. The English title is From the New World. I was about to say this episode is going to cover all of the anime, if we succeed, because we have a bad track record of promising to cover such and then not doing it. But it's okay. We're going to try anyway. We're going with the intention of covering all of the anime and mostly talking about its themes and the stuff.
If we fail, I will edit in a message telling you that we failed, like I did last time.
The dark alter ego of Jacob in JRPG is the editing Jacob that tells him, "No, you failed. I already know the future."
Yeah.
Well, I think it's cool as fuck to have a dark alter ego JRPG.
Yeah, it might seep in. It might seep into present Jacob here.
Don't let it. He's not right. He will be right only if you let him be right.
I don't know. Dark Jacob feels he's trying to come out.
Surely you won't come out ever in this episode. So
yeah.
Shinsekai Yori is an anime that has been made by the studio A1 Pictures. It's an adaptation from a light novel of the same name that was in 3 parts and released in 7 volumes, I believe. There's also a manga. Don't read it.
There's not a manga. Trust me.
It's lolicon material, and for those who are not aware of the term lolicon, it's manga child pornography, porn material, basically. Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know
a
it
good way to put
existed
it.
before we recorded when we recorded the Lisa episode, and I said this was going to be our next thing. I didn't know, and then Jacob sent me a message, which he didn't know I was awake, but it was in the middle of the night with the time zone thing, and I couldn't sleep, and I fucking
All right.
yeah, do it, do
So
it.
listen, I'm a manga guy. I don't watch a lot of anime. I prefer manga. Um, so there was this point where I was like, I wonder if there's a manga that exists, because I know that it's a light novel adaptation. Um, I wonder if there's a manga that exists that I could secretly read and pass off like I watched the anime. So I looked it up. I found the Shinsekai Yori manga, and I was like, this looks a little odd from the cover of the first volume. Uh, so they start off in the series at about 12 years old. The character model is not what I would picture a 12-year-old as looking like, that's on the cover. But I was like, you know what? I know they get older. I don't know how much older they get throughout the series, but maybe like this is an image of them as an adult, and maybe because I had already watched 6 or so episodes of the anime at this point. Maybe like the manga incorporates, future scenes of the characters talking about their past or whatever, and that's what this image is of. It takes less than 30 pages for there to be like full on lolicon nudity, and I was sitting there looking at this manga in disbelief, and I messaged Victor, holy fucking shit, have you seen the Shinsekai Yori manga, because it is fucking disgusting.
Rancid, in
It's
your own
fully
words.
oh, rancid.
And
Thank you.
rancid is the apt word.
Yeah. Don't read the Shinsekai Yori manga.
Yeah, that's the short of it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I read more of it and to see just how far I. Well, anyway.
Yeah, we were talking like a few days after the fact, and Victor said something like, yeah, I was having trouble sleeping because I was reading the Shinsekai Yori manga. And I was like, you're still fucking reading it? And he was like, no, like that night a few nights ago. And I was like, okay, thank fucking God. Why would you do that to yourself?
Why did I do that to myself is the question.
Did you finish the chapter?
No, I didn't finish it, but I basically looked at a snippet of every arc. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Shouldn't have. So, the anime. So, this is a 25 episodes anime, and we intend to cover all of it in one episode. So this is very much not going to be a one podcast, 3 episodes kind of format that you could have seen. This is going to be much more resumed. This isn't about talking about every detail and giving our reaction to every episode, even on a global basis. It is much more about the global themes of Shinsekai Yori. And to approach this, I basically came up with this structure. So we are going to focus on certain episodes that are going to be bridges, sort of. These episodes are unchosen because they're more interesting, but because in those episodes, they refer back to interesting that happened in episodes before and also after. And so by focusing on those episodes, we broadly cover all of the more interesting themes of the anime. So those episodes are episode 4, episode 12, episode 16, episode 17, episode 19, and episode 25.
The
Yeah,
these are basically the exposition dump episodes.
more or less.
I
I,
in my notes, which I stopped taking after a while to be so real. But up to this point, every episode Victor just listed, my notes for them start with exposition dump. In the first one, it's like weird rat computer exposition dump. In the next one, it's grandma exposition dump, and then there's grandma exposition dump part 2.
there is not episode 14, which is Grandma Exposition Part 2.
Yeah.
I would argue 17 isn't a Lord exposition though, but whatever. Yes. I gotta ask though, because to me, episode 12 and episode 14 are some of my favorites. And just to really quickly ask, and we don't break apart the structure right away, but like, is exposition. Do you read science fiction novels or books or fantasy stories or like basically books that aren't video essay-ish?
I mean, I don't use exposition dump as a necessarily like pejorative term. I don't think it's inherently bad to have an exposition dump. In fact, like episode 4, the first time we get an exposition dump in the series was when I was like, "Oh yeah, we're fucking cooking with something now." Um I just think like you call it what it is. It's an exposition dump. They are essentially spending entire episodes expositing, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's just I was wondering because like to me it reads very much as, oh, it's adapted from a book. And so you calling it exposition dump RPG, I was like, wait. I've never heard him talk about a novel like as in a story format, not in a
I mean,
book from a YouTuber or something else or documentary or whatever.
there's a lot of stuff about this anime where you know it was adapted from a book. Let's
Yes,
be
yes.
let's be honest.
Episode 4 basically starts with some kids catching a weird slug in the nature that starts telling them about the story of the world. Now,
well, hold on, here.
wait.
Hold on.
I did it on purpose. Okay, go ahead.
I do think like I don't want to do a scene breakdown the way we did with Lisa, you know. I think the big difference between what we're doing here and what we did with Lisa is a game works so functionally different than a show where it almost necessitates a scene breakdown, especially a story like Lisa, where like your interactivity with those scenes is key to the narrative. But I do think we should at least like, you know, say a few things about the stuff between.
Yes,
You know, just to get a general vibe.
I
Cuz jumping to kids finding the slug computer is is a little jarring, I think.
I did it on purpose. That was to
I
catch
know, I know.
the listener's attention. And now I'm going to talk about the
Okay.
stuff in between. Don't.
Okay.
Well,
All right,
I
you
mean,
do
I'm
you.
glad we. I'm
I
glad.
told you to be the navigator. I'll let you navigate. I won't backseat navigate.
Your backseat podcasting.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So the story starts 1,000 years after 2012 in Japan, and we are following these kids that are going at a school.
That aspect, though, sorry, is a bit of a mystery. It's not. You don't know that right away.
It says
Which is
right away 1,000 years later, but it is it's vaguely 1,000 years later. It's just a
right.
big title
Yeah.
drop.
Does it really?
Yeah, but you don't really notice it
Oh,
due to due to all the shit that it throws at you. And the first time I watched
Yeah.
Shinsekai Yori, I thought it said 1,000 years earlier because of the rural aesthetic of the place.
Yeah, it does. It does very much have a vibe because the series opens with like a montage of like modern day Tokyo cityscapes and a bunch of fucked up ESP type shit happening. And then we
Mm-hmm.
switch to, yeah, like you said, a more like feudal era almost setting.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
And
timeline is a little funky there.
yes, you are on purpose being thrown kind of in disarray because you start with this modern stuff, and then 1,000 years later, and you have this sort of rural area with those rices of rices of fields. Would you look at that? Would you listen to that? Rices of fields with those fields of rice that are almost Edo-like in terms of aesthetic. And I looked at the actual place. So the actual place called Kamisu in the region of Ibaraki, and it is currently nowadays one of the big rural area of Japan where lots of rice is being grown. So it happens 1,000 years later in this rural area in Kamisu, and we see these kids that are playing outside that need to. I mean, I'm starting to resume episode 1, but
Yeah, I think this is basically where we can get to the glossing things over part for like expedition's sake. Episodes 1 through 3 are essentially the ESP school shenanigan episodes, you know. Like he's saying,
mhm.
we're just seeing a primarily like group of 5 kids, 4 kids.
They start at six. They start at
Oh
six.
yeah, yeah.
They quickly drop to five.
Yeah, so that's part of it. So we get like a main group of kids and see like just them doing different activities with their ESP powers to learn, but there's a sort of spooky, uncomfortable undertone as some of them are gradually getting picked off after acting out of order in some way.
Their kids are disappearing, and kids are kind of noticing, but they're not really talking about it because it's kind of a hush hush. Like you're not really supposed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Uh, but they do notice it because well, literally, kids are not here anymore, and they're not being told why. It's just all of a sudden one kid isn't going at class anymore. Um, and those kids eventually go on a summer camp. In this summer camp, they look, they on canoe, they travel outside, they see some animals. The fauna has vastly changed since the for in 1,000 years. There are weird species, weird plants, and for the subject of their summer camp, they decide to catch a sort of rumored something that's kind of a ghost story kind of creature that is called a false Minoshiro. And they eventually find it. That weird slug thing starts talking like a computer. Um, and it describes itself as a library. And in episode 4 starts with the kids asking it questions. And so they ask it about the history of their world. Oh boy. uh, before I start, well, kind of doing more or less resume of the lore dump. What was your impression at this point? I guess as a vibe check.
Well, at so I basically for the first few episodes was kind of fucking bored if I'm being real, but like I was still invested because it felt like it was building to something, you know, with the kids disappearing and everything. But also something that the previous episodes did that was kind of cool was like the opening scenes would be some different event happening that, you know, you would learn here were like events in history. Episode 2 opens with a scene that's like 200 years later, and you don't know if it
Mhm.
means, you know, from where we were watching, and so that was intriguing
Yeah.
to me, like, oh, is this 200 years from now, meaning like whatever's happening now will eventually build to this reality. That's cool. But then here you learn that it was 200 years after the essentially like mass casualty event which made the world the way it is now. Um
Mhm.
and so at this point, it's like, okay, great. I'm really happy that whatever we're building to so soon.
Mhm.
Episode 4 gave me a lot of hope because I was like, oh shit, we're already in this. Um,
Yeah.
part of why I tend to be a manga guy over an anime guy, is that manga is kind of at your own pace. Um, and honestly, there's not a lot of things that I sit there and watch like by myself. I watch a lot of like movies and shows with my fiance, but like when it's an activity I'm doing on my own, um I prefer it to be something more active that I'm more in control of, like a game or a manga, just reading something. And at this point, my fiance was watching the show with me. Um so, it made that part a little easier. We were able to kind of talk a little about where we thought things were going. But
Mm.
also I was really intrigued by all the stuff that the false Minoshiro was like setting up. Um
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if you want to go from there.
Yeah, let's go from there. So the first Minoshiro starts talking about the history of humanity since the 1,000 years to now. In 2011, people that have essentially supernatural powers are scientifically acknowledged. At the peak of the growth of their growth, they were 0.3% of the world population that could use Kentus.
Which is
Kentus is
interesting.
basically how they're going to use is how they're going to call the psycho powers in general.
Yeah. Well, it's because like at this point we're under the impression that like there's some sort of spirit inside the kids that are what they're actually controlling instead of just having ESP. Um
Yeah, because of a sort of Buddhist culture that they tell them like, "Hey, you can do this, you can do this. Now your power is being sealed. Now we are giving you a new mantra, a mantra that's pure. Here's how to use it."
yeah, essentially this episode is us and the kids realizing that everything they've ever known has been a fucking lie and starting to wonder why that is. Um
Mhm.
but the oh my god, I lost my train of thought here. The
It's okay. There's a lot to unpack here. This is kind of what I was kind of afraid of.
yeah,
Let's just ride.
the 0.3% of the population thing of being espers is interesting because at this point in the world everyone's a fucking esper.
Mhm.
Um and if I remember correctly, part of the issue in like the first episode was the main girl Saki like didn't have a solid enough control of her ESP powers to the point where they thought she was just gonna fucking get killed. Like
Mm,
they have an almost eugenics system going on where they seem to just fucking kill
yes.
people who can't control their ESP.
This is this society is a very very layered. Those who live Omerla situation. Um,
What were those
the,
words you just said?
putain, I don't remember the fucking. You know the book, Those Who Live Oner. I don't
No.
remember the name. You know the story of the child that is the utopia. But then when kids are old enough, they learn that there's a single child that's being confined and tortured alone in a room. to let the utopia live, and
Oh,
then you haven't heard of that?
I've heard of it. I don't know. I don't remember the name though.
Okay, I thought you okay
That's
because
a
Jacob
pretty, yeah, I was
Geller
gonna say
brings
that's
it
a
up
Jacob
all the
Geller ass
time.
book, so I'm sure I've heard of it a fucking million
Yeah,
times. But
yeah, he brings it up several times, but whatever.
yeah,
0.3% of the population can't use, and that's the at its peak. Uh, as a side note, the first something I wanted to mention. I'm not going to mention every single thing that the fucking slug says, but the first can't use user was a boy named that it calls A, as in boy A.
mhm.
And the first thing it realizes it can do with its powers is that it can unlock doors. And the first thing that boy does is go inside a woman's apartment at night, and he rapes 19 of them and kills 17 of them. And that is where the big tone shift starts.
Yeah,
In terms of like,
yeah.
like
Up to this point, it's kind of like, oh, we're learning about history. This is really cool. Oh, please stop telling me things.
yes, and it's only getting worse from here.
Yeah.
Um, so the result, and what I've written down basically here is that the resulting chaos and constant danger of 0.3% of the population, which is millions of people, that can just kill you with their mind. I mean, at this point, it's still kind of weak, but it's still they can still do some supernatural shit, and it's starting to grow in intensity in terms of political stakes, societal norms, yada yada yada. Country users start getting discriminated as a minority and being more or less hunted down, which in turn makes them develop countries that is more dangerous and more lethal, which results in an escalation where literally at this point country users can kill people with their mind, and um, the world population takes a steep dive to under 2%. So seven. So I mean, I said 7 billion. It's 2011. It's no 2011. It's 7 billion,
Yeah.
and 2% of that. Then starts a fucking dark age for 500 years, where basically it's kind of a regression in terms of civilization, in that four factions basically appear in Japan, at least. The Minishiro still focuses mostly on Japan when it brushes over the global world
Yeah, the whole
numbers.
the whole like history throughout this show is pretty centered on Japan, which makes it
Mhm.
interesting too, because you know we can really focus on what's happening, which is that essentially history has just reset. Like
Yes.
we have reset to the warring states period, more or less, is what's happening during this period of time.
Yeah, but in somewhat more fucked up, in
Well,
that
yeah,
the
because now
states
they can
aren't.
fucking blow up each other with their minds.
Yes, and also the like so basically there are four competing groups: the slave empires that are ruled by PK users, and there's a really fucked up scene that you see at the start of episode 2, where a new emperor is crowned, and once he is crowned, people start applauding, and he says the first 200 that stop uploading will the first 200 that stop uploading will be offered as this ceremony sacrifice,
hmm
and people are just applauding. And this applauding ceremony, the slug says it lasted 3 days and 3 nights. It took 3 days and 3 nights for 200 people to finally give in and die.
Uh-huh.
It's such a horrible, you can see it happen. Anyway, I love the way this show storytells, exposes how reality went. So those slave empires are fucked, and they're not really waging war against each other. They're mostly keeping at to themselves because they have enough problem internally because of successions. Since they are the emperor's kids, will have Kentus too probably, and will almost certainly kill them as soon as they can use them. And the other factions are the hunter-gatherers that are basically don't have any Kentus and are trying to flee from the slave empires. There are the bandits that have some some Kentus users and that are mostly just well, kind of like plagues of locust on the land, pillaging anything that's attached to the walls. And there's the scientists who sought to preserve knowledge. Uh, don't they sound like the best group of them all? Huh?
Yeah.
It also mentions how the one of the emperors was like could kill without meaning to, in that it was so easy for him to breathe, like it was so easy for him to kill. He could kill people subconsciously, even from far away. And this will come back up. This will come back up later.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the scene we saw in the start of episode 3 is a bunch of samurais that are doing some Sekiro shit, raiding the emperor's castle, and manage at the cost of all of their lives. They managed to get through his, I mean, not get through his defense, but basically body pile onto him so that he misses one of them, so that he has barely time enough to stab him in the heart. And that's the end of the last empires. There is one last thing about the empires I wanted to mention. That's a quote from the slug of how bad it got. His rule saw a decline of his empire's population by half. Corpses lay rotting on the fields and in the hills. Swarm of flies covered the cities thick as black fog, and the stench of decay could be smelled leagues away. This is fucking... I mean, you basically learn that you live in a post-apocalyptic world, essentially.
Yeah.
And after the apocalypse, this dark age happened, which killed human population even more so. And it's basically when the empires are down for good that the scientists make their move. And what basically the scientist approach basically is that we must make it so that people aren't physically able to use Kentus against each other, or else civilization will fall. And so they use several means. They use stuff like hypnotizing and shit, but the two that I want to focus on is that first they had to go to changing the human genome. The first thing they did is that they added an attack inhibition, which is similar to wolves, in that wolves among a pack, even if they fight themselves seriously, they will mostly avoid lethal wounds. This is as a means of survival, of course. And the other was a death feedback mechanism, in which if you kill someone else, you will some of your liver and some of your organs will stop functioning and you die. And there's a really fucked up scene when the slug mentions that Saki remembers at the temple when she was young. The priest in front of her stabbed himself and was like, you are hurting me. Look at what you're doing to me. And she starts getting the first symptoms of this death feedback. And what this means is that essentially they test children for their death feedback.
There's an interesting thing I want to point out about the death feedback. So it's kind of minor, but I just thought was interesting is that so I started watching this show. Well, okay. Initially I put it in dub, at this point in my life, I start with dub, and if it sucks, I switch to sub. Or if I'm being so real, I stop watching the anime at all. But this time, I started in dub, but the voices were crunchy like a fucking PS1 game, so I switched it to sub. But after the like childhood arc, I ended up switching it back to dub just for ease of getting through it. And
Mm-hmm.
in the dub, they call it the death of shame, which I thought was pretty
Right.
interesting and cool. Like, because yeah, death
Yeah.
feedback is more like literally what it is, but I do like the addition of the translation where it's like it's not just like this is what's happening, what will happen if you hurt somebody. It's like no, you will be so ashamed, you yourself will die too.
You literally die of cringe.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I think really like the really important stuff to learn from the Minoshiro was that essentially the very first uses of the ESP were used for fucked up rancid reasons. This built into a culture that was just unsustainable of people using ESP on each other, endless fighting, and like you said, you kill enough people and things just stop working. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that led to the development of these inhibitors on the powers by the science colonies, which were the death feedback and the just general um they seem to weed out the like combat focused ESP abilities as they like raised the kids. They kind of weeded those out. um I think a really interesting thing to point out here that I think is important
Mm.
too is of like our group of kids who are hearing this, there is a very different reaction from some of them where the the main girl's name is Saki, and I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
name everyone, but so we have Satoru who's with them, and he is the one who keeps pushing the Minoshiro to tell them more. He wants to learn more. He's really
No,
invested.
that's Shun.
Oh, that is Shun? Okay. That's my
That's Shun.
bad.
Satoru.
Some listen,
Yeah.
you know what? Anyways,
Yeah.
so Shun is pushing the Minoshiro to tell them more. That makes a little more sense to me, given how things end up with him. But then there's another kid named Mamoru who is begging the Minoshiro to stop talking because he cannot fucking handle the information that's being delivered to him. He's generally
Yeah.
presented as a more meek kid like anyways, but this is just way too much for him to bear. And it's understandable. Like one, all these kids are like we said learning that everything they've ever known has been a fucking lie, but also they're learning that they have within themselves the power to be fucking monsters, and it doesn't seem like they're very far from becoming that. It
Yeah.
seems like all it takes is one little event to happen that could turn them into that.
Yes. Basically. I mean, no, not basically. It's exactly that.
Yeah,
Sorry, I say basically a lot.
it's
It's
okay.
not. It's. There is one last thing they put into place to make people stop attacking each other, and that's applying ethology in practice. So ethology is the study of animal behavior, um, and they basically wanted it so that the human society was, in a sense, more lovable and less stressful. And so they wanted them to act more. They basically made it so that through, we don't know what means, but 1,000 years later, human society, in the way it behaves, is more like the bonobos. Now, what are the bonobos? Bonobos are monkeys that are very close, very close to the chimp. So the chimps are the closest animal there is to man. The bonobos are essentially just right there. Chimps are, if you spent enough time on the internet, you may have heard that they're vicious and extremely violent. Um, and if you're like me, you double check what you hear on the internet. And so I read a really fucked up scientific review on a chimp attack. And so I can confirm now that yes, chimps are bad creatures. I am all in for animal rights. Yeah, but this was very bad. Bonobos on the other hand, man, they're chill. There is very little lethal attacks recorded amongst bonobos, and violent conflicts are almost never happen among them. And it's interesting because while chimps are located mostly north of Congo and bonobos are located mostly south of Congo, they live very close to each other in the same country. They have they are basically cousins in terms of genes, but one is very all love and peace, and the other are extremely aggressive, to say the least. What is due with that? And that's because bonobos basically use sexual behaviors, sexual contact as a mean to solve issues among the group, and I mean that in constantly, like they constantly will do sexual stuff, not mating necessarily. It's rarely penetration. Even actual mating is actually very short, but intimate contact basically is how they solve issues. There are also some cute/disturbing facts about bonobos that I read upon. They're one of the only animals, if not the only one, that make eye contact while mating. And the other one is that they're the only animal that has been observed to do tongue kissing. Right? That's. I was kind of baffled when I learned that first. So yeah. Go ahead.
it, I I know the answer to this question. My question being, where the fuck are you going with this? But it's like, okay,
Look,
all right. I think okay. I think it's time. I think it's time. I fucking hate this show. This show fucking sucks balls. If I had watched the first few episodes, I would have stopped watching and turned it off and been like, this wasn't for me. You know, I'm glad that people like it, but, you know, I'm sure it goes somewhere. I just am not invested to see where it goes. I saw where it goes. This bonobo thing is more like a little funny thing throughout the show. I think the show sets up a lot of things, and this bonobo thing is one of them, but I am wondering, like, what is like, I want to know, like, what's the purpose of explaining you're doing about bonobos.
It's because I don't know. It's an interesting sci-fi concept. Where I was going with this is that by making human society like bonobos, they basically said that, like, well, in order to make people stop attacking each other, we will go up to modifying their very behavior.
Right.
And that includes child grooming, because bonobos will literally have sexual acts with any members of any age.
Mm-hmm.
And so your peace and love bonobo species compared to the chimps, yes, they do have less lethal attacks in theory and stuff, but by forcing humanity to get into this culture, essentially in their very behavior, they made child grooming part of the mechanism of ensuring that people don't attack each other. And that, to me, is a pretty sick concept. It doesn't come up really a lot later on.
Yeah. I think this show does a lot of, like, I don't know. I think this is a really interesting show to read a wiki about if I'm gonna steal a criticism from H Bomber Guy, which is what he said about Ruby. Um, and I think that is part of it. But I do look at our recording time and we've talked about how we don't want to dwell too much. I mean, honestly, I'm all for talking about the bonobos, you know. Um, but I don't know. I've gone off the rails here, and we need to bring it back. And I'm very sorry for my interruption. Uh, I'm
I
backseat
think it's
podcasting again.
I know, I think it's fair, and like I wanted to, I like I knew we were go. You said it in the very intro, like this is going to be our worst episode. Whatever.
Yeah.
Let's just let it be our episode and not just me rambling. And honestly, I feel like I'm rambling too. I wish I was more succinct about the stuff I want to talk about. Okay. But there is stuff I want to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
So
So, anyways, we learn about the bonobos because next episode the kids get separated, and two of them, Saki and Satoru, end up in this cage and start being like, we should fuck. And then Saki's like, nah, we're not animals. And so they don't.
yeah, right. I mean, good. At least it's not a made in abyss situation where the offer is anyway.
Yet. So I think there's another thing. I mean, feel free to stop me, but I think we need to bring up the fucking queer rats right now, because we have not mentioned them once. So we
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, because this is what the rest of the fucking story is gonna be about. In reality, these kids like are barely fucking important. That I'm being facetious because they are important, but this story has a lot of things it wants to be about, and I think they're oh my god, okay, let's organize this a little.
Yeah.
There's something I want to bring up, where I think this is an interesting thing to cover after something like Lisa, which is Lisa is a game where at least I feel that it is like one of the most ludonarratively harmonious games I've ever played. And the but I want to bring up this fucking Dan Olson folding ideas video that I was watching recently. He's one of the several YouTubers who, when I need some comfort, I just go and watch all of their old videos. And I was watching his video about ludonarrative dissonance, which was released around the time when that term was really picking up steam. And it was at this time, it was a term that was getting a lot of pushback from people. It was a kind of a new thing. People weren't ready to discuss games as works of art that you can analyze and think critically about yet, so they weren't ready for a term like ludonarrative dissonance. And one of the criticisms of the term that Dan Olson brings up in his video about it is that someone wouldn't call a movie cinema narratively dissonant. For those who are not as informed, ludonarrative dissonance is essentially the idea that what the game's story is telling you doesn't necessarily match what the gameplay is telling you. So, an example, like the one everyone loves to bring up is in Uncharted. Nathan Drake is this hero in the story doing good deeds, but the actual gameplay is you murdering thousands and thousands and thousands of people for some treasure. And the first 3 games try to make up for it by the fact that you're going against some bad guys who want to use the treasure for heinous purposes, and so you're actually doing a good deed by murdering all of their employees. But the point Dan Olson brings up about cinema narrative dissonance is that he uses the example of Transformers, like the movies, as cinema narratively dissonant, because the story of Megan Fox's character is that she's really smart and she's like a brilliant engineer and strategist, but the camera is always on her ass and on her titties and like treating her as a piece of meat. So you would call that cinema narratively dissonant because that what the narrative of the movies is saying is not the same as the cinematic techniques being used for the filming. And I
Yeah.
think I would say Shinsekai Yori is cinema narratively dissonant because what the story wants to be about is um there are a couple main things I would say. One is left as a twist at the ending for some reason, even though like the exposition dump in episode 4 that we just talked about puts it basically as plainly as it could without saying it outright. Um
Yeah, so you guessed it at this
so I guessed it
point.
at this point, which is part of what made me hate the ending, because they bring it up like it's some big reveal, and I'm like, yeah, I fucking knew that. But anyways, so this wants to be about like weapons of power and how their existence at all is like a problem. It wants to be about like, it's a very Kojima take where it's like nukes are bad just for existing. It doesn't matter who has them. It doesn't matter what their intended use is. Uh
Mhm.
if they exist, they shouldn't. Which has the potential to be really interesting because in this world, a nuke isn't an inanimate object made by a human, it is the human themselves. Um,
Mhm.
and that the my issue with the show is it keeps threatening to be good and interesting when it brings up things like this, and then it just doesn't deliver on them. Um, and so like like I think you marking the exposition dump episodes as the ones to be like the important ones to bring up adds to my point because like we keep getting these episodes where the show is like this is what we're actually about. Now let's go fuck off and have a god awful queer rat war for 3 episodes.
Mm. I mean, uh, I mean, what I brought up earlier was like the episodes that are they're not important. It's because they're exposition dumps. Then we can talk about how the exposition comes up in the other episodes.
Sure.
But so to me, you know what? I think it's better if we just get into the meat of the things of what, like the reason I love this show because uh, ask the rest of the podcast on what we both like, what I love and what you hate about the show. I think is where it's interesting. Because every time I watch an episode, or at least some of the episodes, I would say I wouldn't say that for 5, 6, and 7, for example, but like most of the time I will watch an episode of Shinsekai Yori and walk around my main living room for an hour thinking about stuff.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I had lots of fun rewatching Shinsekai Yori this time and taking notes and shit. Um, to me, Shinsekai Yori is it's a show about this weird animal that is human society, but not quite humanity. Like, it's about how society develops in a way that feels like it becomes a separate organism than the humans themselves. It's a show about like how wrapped is society ready to be this in order to self-preserve. Like, human societies, people stay together and build houses and shit, and do certain functions in order to survive and help each other. And we're social creatures, and we want and we want that. when you look at, I don't know, chimp society, some of them are foraging food, some of them are educating the babies, they're doing it together, they're separating the tasks. This is basically what humans and other species that live in social groups do. And it's about how far is, like, if the group needs to survive for strongly enough, it will, how, just what kind of means is it going to develop, and how self-destructive as those means are going to be. As we've seen before, like with the empire guys, the it is in the rawest sense the worst example of that, because the emperor dynasty, the empire lives for the sake of the emperor, and the emperor doesn't live for the sake of the emperor of the empire. The emperor lives for the sake of the emperor, and so everything in the empire revolves around the emperor, and the emperor doesn't really give a shit about the empire, and eventually, everything starts dying out because people that are making the food aren't getting as fed as they should. They're getting killed for no reason. And when you kill enough people, eventually everything falls apart. But in Shinsekai Yori, they show this society that went so far to make things work, to make humans not attack each other, to create an utopia. And what I think is so interesting is just how bad things are in a sense. And so there is this story. And in parallel of that, it is also a story of resistance. And the story of resistance is mirrored between Saki, that is trying to resist from the inside as a kid that is learning the truth about her society and that wants the best for her friends, even if it means going up against society. And there is Squealer, which is a queerat, which is the guys you wanted to bring
Yeah,
up earlier.
which I said we should bring up them, and then I fucking didn't.
It's okay. I'm doing it now. So the queerats are. So if you Google naked mole rat, you will see a very ugly creature. That's a naked mole rat. They're social creatures. Basically, they're one of the very. It's one of the very few mammals that behave in the same way as bees. In that they have a queen, quote unquote, and they have soldiers, and they have burrowers, and basically workers. It's one of the very rare mammals that do that. And you have basically these naked mole rats. Naked mole rats that walk on two legs and that can kind of talk, but their own tongue,
Yeah.
but can also learn the human language.
Yeah, it's like there's only a couple in each colony who can speak Japanese, basically.
Yeah.
But they have their own rat language.
Yes. And the point that there are is that those colonies are, well, trying to survive and vouching for resources among each other. They're mostly rivals. They can do alliances and stuff. And you can see that they're basically at this sort of weird point where they're reenacting human history. And to bring back what I wanted to say earlier, like, this is Squealer is one of those queerats that we meet. Saki and Satoru will meet very early on, and it is the mirrored story of Saki's resistance inside this fucked up society, and it is Squealer resistance against it. And that to me is the main axe that keeps making me think.
Yeah.
About Shinsekai Yori.
I think that is like the strongest aspect of the show. I just think we spend so much fucking time not doing anything with Squealer. Like, except for, okay, so can we just agree to drop any chronology of what we're talking about at this point?
Yeah, I feel like we're being locked up by it more than anything else. I thought we could. I thought with this structure of focusing only on certain episodes and stuff, themes will rise by themselves. But
the
yeah,
the
let's just keep it
the
natural.
issue with like talking about this show in that way, and because our original plan was to cover each arc in its own episode, and looking at the runtime now, we probably could have covered the first arc in one episode if we were to make a really fucking boring episode. um
Yeah,
but essentially episodes 5 through 7 are a war arc between the Queerats where the kids get separated and Saki and Satoru join up with Squealer and have to basically help him win this war between Queerat colonies. Um and this, like, for me, like, just so I can get this point out of the way and we can move on, this
yeah,
is where the show lost me entirely. This arc, because like this is the quintessential A1 Pictures anime. Like basically anime like this are why I don't watch anime very much anymore. It is a as limited animation as possible, which improves later on. Like I will be honest about that. Some of the animation does get a lot better later on, but this is 3 straight episodes of like a lot of action happening, and a lot of that action is a group of queer rats charging and the camera panning a little, but the queer rats themselves aren't actually moving, and then a cut to black, and then a cut to all the queer rats being dead because Satoru has killed them with his ESP powers. Um and this just goes on and on and on, and there are some things that are like, important going on here. The Another thing to add to the fucking obviousness of the big twist at the end being that queer rats are people. They are people who have been mutated by the slave colonies of the past to be a subservient class of people, essentially. um and so another hint after the Minoshiro exposition dump is that the kids get like stopped by this priest guy who locks their powers by doing some sort of spell, essentially. And then he has to kill a bunch of queer rats, and he starts suffering the death feedback, which is weird at this point because we think like people only suffers death feedback when they kill other people, so why when he's killing these animals is it happening to him? I wonder why. But that part is interesting. And then during this war arc, the kids think that their powers are locked away, sealed away, and they realize they're not. They can just remember their mantra and bring the powers back. Um and this is a and so because of that, like they bring back Satoru's powers, and Satoru starts being like, "Oh yeah, I love killing rats." Um and so we basically just we spend this very long time in this war, and this
yeah. It's too long. I agree.
it's too long,
I,
and this is where we get to another really big issue in the second arc for me, which is the second arc is a lot of like the kids are a little older. It's a couple years have passed. um and the kids are learning more about the world, but also they're learning more about how the all the shit that was told to them by the Minoshiro is affecting them. So Shun, the one
Mhm.
who was apparently the one pushing the Minoshiro to tell them more, uh becomes really important because he starts losing control of his powers, which ties back to the emperor who was able to kill people subconsciously. Like part of the issue
Yeah,
with having this power is if you lose control of it, it will happen without you intending to do so.
yeah. Actually, so yeah, and I have taken some notes on that. Like, it's more. I like the concept of it, so I want to talk about it in a bit more details. But it's like it's not even that like you lose control of it. It's that Quintus is built around intent.
Yes.
However, their their psycho powers, essentially, their powers of the mind. What happens with the subconscious? What's going on there?
Well, yeah, by lose
How does
control, I mean
this?
like they essentially lose their inhibition. It's like we all have oh my god, what's the fucking word? Something thoughts. Intrusive thoughts. We all have intrusive
Yeah.
thoughts. You might walk across a person and your intrusive thought is, I fucking hate this person. They just overstepped me and I want them to die. The problem with losing
Hmm.
your inhibition of that when you have the powers to do that with your mind is that intrusive thought will
Well,
take action. So
yes.
Shun is feeling that he's losing the ability to to be the middleman between intrusive thought and reason.
And and he has a really cool quote about it that I will say later. But it's also like basically conscious leakage passively is happening to everyone. Okay, it's not just a particular condition, but they have this system called the holy barrier that they just have some Buddhist like barriers that surround their villages, and all the while they're being told like stuff about the outside world and how it's bad, like how Tokyo is a wasteland of radioactivity due to the ancient wars over there. And basically, kids are taught to fear the holy barrier. Like, they're so afraid of it, they wouldn't dare cross it. And what's really interesting is that, therefore, unconsciously, people are mostly directing their bad thoughts outward. The people living inside the society are living their bad thoughts outwards. And when Shun ends up with this condition called becoming a karmic demon, where, as you said, you lose completely, like the conscious just overflows. It just keeps leaking and leaking more and more. He describes his condition like that. Um, we ultimately fear what spawns from within us. This means there is a need to direct it outwards. Since our childhood, we've been conditioned to fear the outside world. However, an image of that dark, boundless world exists within us. It becomes one with the dark universe inside ourselves, our subconscious. And I love this fucking quote because, we are so high in sci fi, but this quote alone, if you take it out of context, I think actually encapsulates something that, you know, we all live we all live every day in society. And it's this idea that we picture the other. We have our own society, which we will mostly see as our country, or at least our region or state. And we will oversify what's happening outside, or at least, you know, medias will oversify the other, and in order to direct, in order to direct fear outwards. And when the medias will, when it doesn't really hold up to oversify what's outside in a world that's full of globalization, then it's about othersifying the other socially, making alienating the minorities by picturing them as aliens and monsters, as we are seeing today with migrants and all the stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just so fucking relevant. Like, I watched this show when I was around 15, and this image stayed with me. Like,
Yeah, I so
I, I,
here's where I come with this show because I agree. All that stuff is really interesting. However, it is happening at the same time that we are getting this bit where we have this like tearful goodbye between Shun and Saki where they confess that they've always loved each other since they were children. So why the fuck did we spend half of this show up to this point with Shun not even being in it? We never got to see them have feelings for each other. The only person Saki has a little bit of feelings for is Satoru when they're about to fuck like the bonobos. and then the whole like middle arc, Shun was in a relationship with Satoru instead, and we get a few like looks of a longing from Saki at them, but like we barely spend any time with them being together in this whole show. And so you really lose me when we're having this big epic moment where Shun is self-destructing and sending Saki away, and the music is swelling in emotion because these two dear friends who uh have spent their whole lives together are being sent away. And I just think, like, instead of watching Satoru kill a bunch of rats, we should have watched Shun and Saki be good fucking friends.
To be fair, I do think like the show does like put some details here and there in episode 1, 2, 3 of like Saki trying to get Shun's attention, and Shun trying to be, because Shun is basically the ace of the group. He's the best one at school and stuff. So of course everyone wants to be friends with him, and he's clearly trying to not make people jealous of Saki. But you know, they have this 1-to-1 in the canoe where he what he does with his cantus is that he completely erases the ripple from the river completely, so that it becomes a mirror of the sky in the night,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this beautiful like double stargazing that happens between him and Saki. But like I agree that both narrationally speaking and emotionally speaking, it doesn't really work, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like at this point, my brain is out is elsewhere. But also, I really like the vibe of the episode 10 and how insane the animation goes with the visuals and stuff. Like I like it how weird it is, but I'm not saying. I guess I'm just not saying. I thought it was good in retrospect. Well, no, it objectively isn't, but I still kind of love it.
I get that. I think it's really like a it's where our difference in values is, I think, is, and I think that's okay to have that difference of values. I I think like this show has a lot of really interesting themes, and I think you have really clung to those themes and thinking about them. And I don't think that's necessarily like a bad way to engage with media. For me, I think it's like it's a balancing act. Like how much how much do you like the good thing weighing against how much do you dislike the bad thing? And for me, I think the bad just so far outweighs the good in this show that ultimately, like, while I think it's really worth discussing all the themes about it, I almost find it's not even worth discussing the show itself. Because, like, if I'm being
Yeah,
real, plenty of other things have had the exact same theme and been less of a torturous experience to engage with for me. So, like, where episode 10 really fucking lost me, like we like you bring up episode 10 specifically because that is the episode where all of this is
yeah.
happening. Um is at this point I've felt like I haven't been enjoying this show, but I trusted enough to build to something. And episode 10 killed my trust in what it was building to being worth my time because like because of the dissonance in their tearful goodbye and the emotions that the show was trying to get me to have of these two friends separating from each other. And it happens again in this middle arc because eventually their other friends leave, Maria and Mamoru, and we get this letter from Maria where she like talks about her love for Saki and about how good of friends they were, and over this montage,
Friends,
lovers,
friends, motherfucker.
lovers, how
Okay.
good of friends and lovers they were, over this montage of scenes of them being together that weren't in the fucking show. A couple of them were, but there were a lot of new scenes of this montage of them being together. And then so there's the section of the letter where Maria talks about their like friendship and love with each other, and then there's the second half where she's talking specifically about her admiration for Saki, and the clips playing behind the admiration for Saki sections are scenes where Maria wasn't fucking there because she wasn't important. And
Uh-huh.
and so once again we have another big tearful thing where like Saki is mourning the loss of this really good friend and lover that we didn't get to fucking see them be that in the show. There the this brings
Wait, hold on. We didn't get to see Saki and
we didn't get to
Maria being
see
lover in the show.
we didn't get to
Hold on.
no 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 no
Okay.
no 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 let we didn't get to see
Okay.
like there's all this clips of them as children that are playing over this that weren't in the fucking show. Like we get to see them being lovers. They make out, they touch each other. Like we get some intimate scenes, but all the scenes that where Maria is talking about how like cool Saki is and how smart she is and like how she admires Saki's like values and everything, all the scenes are of fucking Saki talking to the grandma and Maria wasn't there. I just feel like my issue with the show, well, I have a lot of them, but I think this show either needed to be a lot longer or a lot shorter. And I think
Hmm.
where it found itself was just wrong. I think if it needed to be a lot longer because we needed more scenes of these kids being fucking friends. We just don't get enough of them. Like if like you want me to be so emotional over their connection, like you got to show me them connecting more. Or we scrap this entirely because ultimately like the reason a lot of my notes in this middle section were why the fuck did we spend so long in this rat war with only Satoru and Saki? And ultimately the reason is because the show is just about Satoru and Saki. The other characters are barely important to like the themes of the show and the overarching narrative of it, aside from like having some hype moments and aura of them having tearful goodbyes. And I think either we needed to like just cut them or actually give us more like interactions with them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't I don't necessarily disagree. It's just to me to me it's just like this. I think it could have been executed better, but I still think fondly about Saki as a protagonist, and I think about the story of her friends and of the group, and I'm like to me it's a thing that is here because like it's something that I reminisce over of how bad things were and how things could have been. Like it's something that I think about. I agree that the show could have been better at it, but it's like it is there. Like I don't like. Okay, I am degenerated to the point that when you pointed to me just how egregious the 3D was, I was like, huh. And so I went back to the episode, looked at the episode, and was like, damn, the 3D really is bad, and I didn't notice it
Uh
because at this point I'm focused on other things. When I'm rewatching Shinsekai Yori, I'm watching like since I know what's going to happen with Squealer, I'm watching how he behaves. When is it that he is lying and when he is that he's telling the truth? Because that's very interesting. And it like another thing that's really interesting is also observing Kiromaru. Like doesn't get lots of time in that first arc, but seeing how he behaves is actually really interesting. Because so basically Kiromaru is this character that's another Quirat, and he's basically the commander of the biggest colony in Japan. And he's the commander, not the queen. The queen is the, actual kind of monarch figure or whatever. But
he's
he's
also like
commanding
a
the
wolf
army.
for some reason.
he's a very sexy rat.
Yeah.
I mean, considering there are mutants in the queer rats with other animals, it's not impossible. He is actually a demi-wolf or something.
That's fair.
That isn't made clear, but yeah.
Well, I only point that out because they also, like, when they're talking more about the development of queer rats, they're like, mole rats were the only animal that we could make this happen with. And so I was like, why is this one a wolf then? I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I love my sexy wolf man. He's very cool. He's the highlight of any scene he's in.
Yep.
But it is funny that for some reason this one's a wolf.
Yeah, it is. I mean, do you imagine that voice with a regular looking queer rat?
Honestly, that would be even better.
It would be. It would be really funny. But man, that wolf.
Yeah.
But anyway, he and so what he does in this, so basically he comes at the rescue of Squealer's colony that is being attacked, and essentially saves Satoru and Saki too by putting an end to things by wiping out the other Quirats invaders. And what happens then is that Satoru wants to leave as quickly as possible from him because he doesn't trust him, because he is the biggest guy in the region. He is obviously the most loyal to the humans and to the committee that is governing the villages. And he's like, that guy is going to write us out and sell us off. We need to get out as soon as possible because we're going to get in trouble because we learned all that stuff with the false Minoshiro and because our powers have been sealed. And so they escape from him, quote unquote, but then he ends up catching up with them. But then he doesn't sell them out. He's like, I'm like, he carries them around by boat and gets them where they need to be. And he's like, please don't tell the committee about this. I may be executed because of what I did.
Yeah, because he was under direct orders to take them out.
No, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, no, at this point, they weren't ordered to be taken out. The group one, they were still doing the experiment thing, and Tomiko-sama was already basically pulling her weight so that they wouldn't act. But he's been told to, not interact with kids. Quirats aren't supposed to interact with kids.
Yeah.
The reason he did that is because to him, it is rather than just obeying the orders and keeping the status quo, it is way more valuable to have the potential to befriend a human, because due to the balancing of powers between the Quirats and the humans, which is extremely unbalanced, of course, having a potential human that sees you positively emotionally, that alone outweighs the risk of him getting executed if the kids rat him out anyway. And that does pay off in the end, because Saki does view him positively as her job as the exospecies member thing. And then when she treats him well when he's imprisoned, like 15 episodes later, like, that is so, I love it. And this is, I guess it segues into one of the things that I really like about the show. So I think it's actually doing something interesting, at least it did to me when I was 15, in that the way it presents the Quirats as inferiors and them acting always towards the humans, like begging them and calling them gods and stuff, really passively uses a lot of colonialism language.
Yes.
Like, they are subservient, they are here to serve, they're a sub-race. They don't actually own the place, we just let them live here. And then it completely, like, the first thing that Satoru and Saki are confused at when they eventually rebel in the third act is like, why are they doing it on the first place? We're not treating them this badly. But then in reality, to them, it was like we were living next to, again, living nukes, which, depending on your mood, would wipe a colony from the face of the earth. Rather than living in this constant state of being bubbles at the surface of a puddle, why would we not want to escape it?
Yeah, I mean, I think
And
a thing that's really important in that, like, them questioning why the queer rats would even like consider rebelling is that they very specifically say, like, you're not slaves, you have autonomy over how your colonies are run. And it's
Mhm.
very, it's similar to like a chud would say, like, you don't have to work a shitty job, work somewhere else, or like you don't have to live under the United States healthcare system, move somewhere else. It's like it's
Yeah.
like, well, no. Like, if the choice is do the shitty thing or die, that's not a fucking choice. And this is why, like, I'm sorry to keep coming back to like why, like, my criticisms of the show, especially when I'm trying to say something good about it. This is why I say it should be shorter or longer, because I think like the most interesting stuff is like everything to do with the queer rats, even though that war arc at the beginning was fucking awful because of the production value of it. Like, I think if this was cut so that, like, we didn't spend so much time pretending that these kids were really good friends and focused like entirely on the queer rat human dynamic, like, that is what is good about the show, is that dynamic. Alternatively, like
Mm.
I said earlier, I think if we made it longer so we could actually have like the kids being friends, that would be a positive too. I just think they found this middle ground that I don't think suits it very well. And maybe that's just a problem with adapting 7 light novels into a 25 episode anime. Maybe if I read those light novels, it would be the exact length I would want it to be. Like, I know you said, because when we talked about it before this podcast, that the anime is generally known to be a very faithful adaptation, but like that
Well,
that
according to Redditors, I don't want to put too much
oh,
stock
so
into
they're
them.
fucking lying then. This because this feels like, I don't know, it ends up in this space where it feels drawn out and rushed at the same time, which is what I think happens when you shrink 7 books into 25 episodes. But yeah,
Mm.
so I think that is like a really powerful thing, where because they this conversation essentially happens when they go to the ruins of Tokyo to find I don't remember what they called the thing,
The Psycho
the Psycho
Buster.
Buster, which is just fucking anthrax, which is really funny. Uh
Yep.
um
And I love that. And I learned that today because here's the thing: you don't learn in French history about anthrax.
yeah.
You just so I was like, okay, this is going to be in my Wikipedia run. And not only you learn that, oh, it's just anthrax, but you also learn, and I don't know if that's also what you meant, but it was anthrax was used as a chemical weapons by the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's like,
so it is really cool that like this legendary weapon that's their ultimate power to overtake the nukes, the living nukes, essentially, because the last arc is centered around um them trying to deal with a person.
man, we didn't even talk about fiends.
Yeah, is tr-
They try to deal with a fiend. We'll
yeah.
explain what a fiend is.
Well, a fiend is essentially what Shun was at risk of becoming, more or less. Like,
No, that's different.
the karma demons and fiends are not the same thing.
Not at all.
Okay,
That's
well,
all of what Tomiko Saman explains.
that's fair.
Anyway,
Grandma, yeah.
the
So anyways, they're dealing with a fiend, or at least what they think is a fiend, and they can't kill it because the fiend is a human, and they risk the death of shame if they kill that. And also, like, will
Mhm.
they even have the power to do so? Who knows? So they go to Tokyo to find what what they are calling this fucking legendary weapon, ultimate counter nuke, and it's just like a vial of anthrax. That is really interesting because,
Mhm.
like you said, that was a
Because
chemical weapon used by the United States, and like just it's just a thing that kills you from the inside. And
yeah, so it wouldn't trigger the death feedback because what you're doing is you're just breaking the file. You're not actually doing the action of taking away the life.
that is a really like interesting commentary too, especially at the time of like, you know, the depersonalization of like modern war, you know. We've got like
Mhm.
drone strikes and bombs, which are just these things where you don't really get to see the person in front of you that you're killing. And that is essentially
Mhm.
what the idea is with them going to Tokyo to find the anthrax, because it essentially creates this loophole with this literal sci-fi mechanic of like, oh, if I directly kill a person then I die too, but if they just happen to die at the result of my actions, that's not me killing them. um
Mhm.
and so anyways, to get back to why we started talking about the anthrax, we learn about like the relation.
Before that, there is a really um, there is a really like interesting thing with that segues into the anthrax. So you talked quickly like it it connotes the modern warfare and how impersonalized it is and stuff. The way they live in a society, it all ties in together how magic it is. They live in a society where they want one big problem that arose after the Dark Ages and after the scientists took over with their peaceful society, etc., was the apparition. It was demons, fiends. What a fiend is basically someone that um, loses, not loses control, but they have basically a psychologic episode, and as a result of it, they become addicted to their own endorphins. And the way they produce that endorphin is by killing people with cantus. The result of that is that you basically see someone going psycho and killing everyone around. And it's not just like they go postal, but it's also as long as they live and their body function, they will kill people on sight and in order to basically like crackheads to fulfill that need for endorphin. And that is the greatest threat civilization can face because a fiend cannot be killed, since because humans cannot use the cantus against them, but they can kill them. And in order to rebel, what the Krats do is that they quote unquote have a fiend on their side. Um, and the thing with the way this society made it so that they would prevent things from disappearing is that they basically look at the children and see how they behave. And they do different tests, like psychological, personality wise. They look at how you act during team exercises. And the moment a person in the uh, board of education is like, that kid is kind of sus, well, you get fucking gone. But how do you get rid of the kids if you have deaf feedback? Well, when the first fiend went on a rampage, they ordered the Quirats to kill whole bunch of kids in a scene that really is really reminiscing of the beginning of episode 2 when you see the samurais going at it to try and kill the lord. And once they use the Queras, then they basically standardized the bioengineered cats, tainted cats, which are basically huge tiger-like cats that have some weirdly weird boot feet, but whatever. And so that they can send those cats after kids they want gone. And that ties back into the Anthrax because here's the thing: the fucking Nazis, when they started their genocide against the Jews in concentration camps and extermination camps, the first thing they employed was putting them against the wall and shooting them. But very quickly, that was not viable because soldiers were getting psychologically strained from killing unarmed people by shooting them. It's not to give credits or whatever, saying, oh, humanities were humans or whatever, because it's just human basic, your average human, psychologically speaking, does not handle well murder. And chaining murder like that all day long couldn't be industrialized in the way they wanted. So they developed a way clean to murder, to make it so that it would be indirect and have as little human involvement as possible. And that's the gas chambers. That's how the gas chambers came to be.
And I think
And
it's
it's the same
important too that it's like it was part of the whole propaganda and kind of misinformation of the whole thing, where they were essentially building in a plausible deniability, like if they don't have a bunch of soldiers directly pulling the trigger, but they're just kind of like putting them in this room and then getting their hands off of the situation, they could be like, you know, we didn't kill all those people, 6 million,
Yeah.
what is that? That's a lie, this was all a hoax.
They say we're keeping accurate records of literally everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's like, and it also ties into death penalty and how death penalty has become more and more indirect. But murder hasn't disappeared.
Yeah.
But we want to make it easy on ourselves to handle, and this ties into the fucking death feedback, and like this sci-fi concept ends up actually extremely resonating with things that are still relevant today. And there are other things. Another common thing is how, like, they mentioned it several times that, well, Quantus is great at attacking, but we can't really defend ourselves with it, so we need to go on the offensive and eradicate them. And you see when the Croats rebel against the humans, you see them using lots of suicide attacks, or at least mass attacks that troops are basically being set with the intent to die in the process, but taking as many as they can with them. And the wolf, it's not actually a Kentus thing of like, well, ESP powers are only good for offense. It's just the way nature works and the way humanity has evolved. Weapons have always been developed faster than protections. Protections were always outmatched by offensive means. And going at the offense, having means of retaliation, have always been a part not just of humanity but of nature itself. Having means of retaliation or of avoidance, of camouflage, has always been more effective than means of protection. And I just think about this stuff, it's like, I think it's so fucking cool how it all ties in together. It's very rambly, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think, that's fair. Like, I'm in agreement that the themes this show touches on are really cool, and a lot of them meld together very well. We went on this really long tangent because we had to explain what we were talking about when trying to explain something else, and that is interesting. This is why I stole fucking H Bomber Guy's criticism of this is a really good show to read a wiki about, because like when you're just discussing this part, it's really exciting and really interesting, and I'm starting to think, man, maybe this show was good. But then I remember all the other shit, and it's hard to keep that thought in my head. But
Well, okay, you know what? I think it's a good point to bring it up.
because this is the
like,
kind of
I
show
wanted to.
this is the kind of show a YouTuber makes a 3-hour long video essay about, and they only talk about the really interesting themes, and then everyone collectively remembers how good this show is when they haven't actually watched the fucking thing.
So here's the thing. I wanted to get some external medias before the podcast. I mean, not before the podcast, like just now, but like in general, as I was watching, and I wasn't getting many discussions on the internet about the show. So what I did is that I tapped on YouTube Shinsekai Yori and scrolled through the soundtracks and stuff, and basically wanted to click on the first thing that kind of looked like a video essay. And the first video that fit the bill was a video called "Why Sword Art Online is Better Than Shinsekai Yori." And I was like, what?
Listen, man. I'm gonna be so fucking real with you right now. If you strap me to a chair and put a gun to my head, and you said, in order to live, I need to either watch Shinsekai Yori again or 25 episodes of Sword Art Online, I'm picking Sword Art Online every fucking day.
No!
Because listen, that show is fucking garbage, but that's one of the A1 Pictures shows where they actually decided to animate things. And man, it's just, I don't know. I'm very
you
much.
can be honest with your feelings. I'm reacting, but you can. Don't worry.
It's more like
you don't have to be sorry.
I'm like an animation snob, not because I necessarily look down on intellectual anime, but more like if it's intellectual, I'd rather read it than watch it. And so, yeah, if you gave me Sword Art Online next to Shinsekai Yori, if a manga existed of Shinsekai Yori and wasn't the one that exists, then I might be coming in here swinging completely differently. But yeah, but between the two of them, I'm picking Sword Art Online. Listen, crossing fields.
Look,
that shit goes fucking hard, man.
Look, what if? Okay, wait, yeah, but in your example, what if you weren't alone, but you were with me, and we, you were the one that had to choose, but you could talk with me.
I would still pick Sword Art Online. Because at least
we could
at least like when the show is being stupid and dog shit, we could laugh and be like, oh my god. And honestly, I think talking about Sword Art Online would be so fun.
No, not as fun as talking about Shinsekai Yori.
These came out at the same time. Listen. We can talk about everything that's good in Shinsekai Yori by talking about things that are much more enjoyable to experience.
Look, hey, here's the thing, though. I watched Sword Art Online. It was my second or third anime I ever watched. It was like, it must have been like 1 year or maybe at most 2 years separated from Shinsekai Yori. I was just as much of a shitty teen. I cannot express enough just how much I look on Sword Art Online with this day now, and how I fucking love Shinsekai Yori comparison.
Hey man, I mean, I watched Sword Art Online shortly after it came out, because when it came out was when I was in the fucking troubled teen industry, so I kind of missed a couple years of reality there. But it was one of the first anime I watched when I got back, and I fucking loved it because I was 16 and had been cognitively stunted by events. And now I look at it and go, oh yeah, that Asuna stuff was really bad. Oh yeah. A lot of that was really garbage. It's really a show that delivers a strong premise to you and then fumbles it. And I kind of think that's exactly what Shinsekai Yori does too,
No.
but I
I mean, maybe. Okay, look. Okay, the narration and the animation is trash, but like, do you think like the third arc? Do you think it's like badly paced? Like because to me, the third act is almost perfect as it is. I did find a few like things that I thought was badly thought story wise, like how they don't ever mention the option of like when they fight the Fiend, they don't ever mention the option of, well, is it possible for you, Kiromaru, to somehow find an opportunity to kill her since you're a queer. Uh, but aside from this detail, like did you think that like it was a pain to go through this one? Like,
I mean,
because to me, seeing the hellscape of Tokyo is so entertaining.
I think Act 3 is generally pretty solid, but that's 9 episodes of a 25 episode anime that you have to suffer through the other 16 of to get
Okay.
to. And I think that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, I need to pull back the curtain a bit for the listeners here, but like, we've been like, it took 3 weeks to basically watch all of the episodes, and Jacob basically updated me on how much he was not feeling the show. And honestly, like, I mean, sure, I'm kind of sad that my friend doesn't like the media that I like, blah blah blah. But mostly, like, you work a full-time job too, and you're not working from home, and like, I'm so sorry that it ended up turning out this way and that you had to watch all of it.
I mean, part
And
of that.
that
Sorry, go on.
I know how much the context of experiencing something matters, and like being essentially forced to go through something you don't like for during 3 weeks. I don't blame you at all for like saying all of this thing about the show. Like, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and
I'm not.
to add to
I
that
don't want to
point-
fight back against you on your feelings.
To add to that point, so I was watching this with my fiance, who I basically got her to watch this with me because it is just much easier for me to watch something if I'm doing it like with someone like next to her, especially because with her we get to snuggle while we're watching it, so it's kind of like doing two things at once. But we literally, after the first act, I asked her, like, are you watching the show because you want to see the show, or are you watching it just for me? And she said, I'm watching it just for you. And we ultimately agreed that I would continue on by myself because we felt like we were wasting the time we had together by watching it. Because like we both work full time, and she works really early and has a really long commute, and so she has to go to bed pretty early during the weekdays, so we like don't have that much time to spend together during the week. And at that time the plan was like start on Sunday, record on Saturday, so weekdays were the only time we could watch the show together. So it was basically like we would spend our evening watching 2 episodes and then she would go to bed. And then it was just like, man, what a waste. So I ended up watching the rest of it on my own. One, so we could have more time together, but also so I could just like expedite the process by torturing myself in how I watched it. But yeah, I mean that's I do think like there are.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I think like I might have to be a fucking asshole here and ban anime from this podcast. At least if it's longer than one core. I will sit through 12 episodes. Because we've talked, like, okay, we've talked about watching Code Geass, which is a show I remember very fondly. I watched Code Geass when I was 11 or 12. And after this experience, I think if I had to sit through the episode where Lelouch chases a cat around because the cat took his helmet, I would lose my fucking mind.
Dude! I have a rant radio about why this episode is so fucking good.
I'm sure it's good, but like we have to think about, the consequences of what we're doing in the format of art we are creating.
Okay.
Because I think I also think that I made you play Lisa under bad pretenses. I think your opinion of Lisa might have been a lot stronger if we weren't on that times crunch and you weren't spending it thinking about I have to get through this rather than I want to get through this. And I don't think it's viable. I like I said, it's been at this point 16 years since I have seen Code Geass, but that is a 50 episode anime that I think we probably have to wait at least 25 episodes again to start talking about. And I just don't think it's viable.
It's so... I hear you. I totally hear you. I didn't intend anytime soon to put an anime on the table. I actually thought ahead and prepared other recommendations. I do really want to talk about Code Geass with you, but what I would recommend in order to figure out, to figure out whether it is possible or not to watch Code Geass, is that if you have the time on your own to just watch the first 3 episodes, because I think like they really encompass the pace of the show very well, and like if they flow in and you basically tell me how you feel about the thing, because to me like Code Geass episodes are like have this sort of black magic applied to them that makes them tell you all this stuff without like without missing a beat, and while still being cohesive, and while just moving things along at the speed of light. That's my perspective. My perspective in anime is, as we've discussed, biased, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have a higher anime tolerance than I do.
Probably. Very likely. Almost certainly. But I do think it would be worth it. So not on podcast schedule, just if you want, watch just the first 3 episodes of Code Geass and see how you feel. It's not, you don't have to do it anytime soon either, because like I still have recommends ahead. It's something we can think about. But I agree that we can't do a like 25 episodes. It's here's the thing. I was having trouble also telling you, like, giving you recommendations of how to make it easier for you to watch Shinsekai Yori, because here's the thing. Watching too many episodes at once is, I think, the better option, but it's definitely not ideal for obvious reasons. Like, you're basically watching the length of a movie every day. And the other option is to, well, divide it and make it last longer among the weeks. But that also ends up feeling bad when it's, especially when it's something you don't like, but also when it's like for the one episode. So to me, the ideal scenario is if we are able to record one episode for half of the season 1 of Code Geass and one episode for the other half, and that means watching the 12 episodes in 1 week. That to me is the best pace. If that pace is painful to maintain, stressful and shit, then yeah, it's not worth it. It's not doable.
Yeah, I think like the other thing too is, I mean, I'm saying this with like as we're recording it, so I don't know how it's gonna feel when I'm editing it or when it's edited, but what we have basically made here is a jumbled mess. I don't know if anyone will get a cohesive view of Shinsekai Yori from this. I mean, we're making
they won't. This isn't what this is about.
We're making a podcast where we rant about an anime as opposed to the kind of like breakdown analysis of like the games that we have talked about previously, and I think that's just like how the mediums work. I'm gonna bleep out the title of the sentence I'm about to say, but I think this is why a fucking dog shit podcast is because, like, in order to talk about a show in this way, you either have to make it so vague, like the person has to have seen this show in order to understand what you're talking about, or you fucking recap it. And like recapping a show and like talking about the things you did in a video game are like two completely different things. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
came into this podcast ready to recommend a bunch of manga, and I don't think I'm even going to do that anymore. Um
I think you could. I'm ready to wrap this up soon. I have just one last Shinsekai Yori rant about the themes that affects me, but then we can wrap this up. I'm glad the podcast went this way mostly because um like I wasn't I could tell I could tell the energy wasn't there at the beginning, and I wasn't really sure how to connect with you.
mhm.
But I think this episode is. I mean, I'm interested in listening to it because I I don't know. I'm feeling positive right now
Okay.
rather than negative. I think it's a. I mean. I'm kind of disappointed, but like I already knew that you warned me beforehand. But I'm glad that uh I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, but it's like the reason the reason I'm glad we're podcasting together is so that we could rant about stuff we like and express ourselves.
Mhm.
And I enjoy. Well, it's insane, but I do enjoy hearing you rant. I think it's very entertaining.
I feel like a fucking
And I hear
asshole when
you.
I
I
do
don't
it,
mean that
but
in a dismissive way.
no, I understand. I understand. For me, I'm very self-conscious about like yucking people's yums. I mean, I did so like you know, we were talking about the Lisa episode and I was like, man, I was such an asshole about Nintendo for no reason. Uh I do get self-conscious. I'm more willing to do it when it's like a yum that I don't think you have, but it's more like I feel bad. This is the most I've ever talked shit about something someone likes to them in my life. I do not like doing that. But I also I don't know. I couldn't find it within myself to allow the fucking the thing to go on without it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think like at risk of adding another hour to the runtime of this, I think we do need to talk about the ending specifically, cuz this is where I
Yes.
have like a very like weird jumble of feelings about.
Yeah. Let's go with it. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
All right. Let's do
Well,
this.
I also want to point out something that's interesting, like to go back an hour ago when we were talking about why Kiromaru knows about the fucking anthrax, uh, is that essentially he tells them like at one time they went to Tokyo to get it because like while they can kill humans without suffering the death of shame, a chemical weapon is just a much more expedient way to do so. And that's what
Speci-
and that's when they're like, well,
yeah.
why would you want to do that to us? We treat you well, you have your own autonomy. And he's like, do we? Because you control nuclear power essentially and we don't. And at this point in the show, we've seen, I don't know if this was always the case or if it was something that had just happened kind of recently, but we saw that like queerat colonies need to get like approved to go to war by the humans, and then humans need to like sit
Yes.
there on the sideline as referees watching their war happen. And so
Yes.
uh,
And that's something I wanted to bring up too in the colonial stuff. This reminds me a lot of the way the British were handling their colonies around India and the Middle East, in that they had those tribes that were allies and they were categorizing them as warrior like or prone to treason and all that
yeah.
stuff. And they were basically trying to micromanage their politics, while in reality they were getting led on by the nose by them because the British are dumb as fuck. I mean, so are every colonial powers, to be fair. I'm French. By the no, we will bring it up in the ending. I have a nasty colonial French subject that ties in perfectly with what happens. And yeah, this is very much like it's not just their autonomy, but it's also like um, the, the humans have a dedicated death squad for the Quirats when they have to eradicate a colony, and Saki when Kilomalu um, says to Saki like, "What the fuck are allies? You guys are just nukes." Um, y- um, what the fuck? What are allies anyway? You guys could wipe us out in an instant. More importantly, that did happen. He says like certain colonies have just disappeared for obscure reasons.
Yeah, it's also
Like
like
there is this facade of management and of order and stuff, but in reality, the queer rats are rats to the humans. And there are things that, like, you can see one of the early guys in the Security Council, the Buddha looking dude
mhm.
uh, that gets clapped by a gun very early on.
Uh-huh.
You can see that the fucking this guy was hunting queer rats for pleasure. This is what this guy was doing. He was hitching to wipe out all of half of the queer rats for hunter pleasure, I guess.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, for a moment this gets like some kind of shonen energy with this guy being like, "Oh yeah, I fucking love war." Like he's basically like the fucking guy, the bad guys of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance who are talking about how like 9/11 was fucking awesome because we got to kill people and the weapons economy was great.
Damn. I should play Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
You should. It's one of the best games ever made.
Great. And so the ending. Or is there something you wanted to bring up?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to make that point that Kiromaru makes, and to understand a little more about the connection between like the humans and their control over the Queerat colonies. So Squealer has. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about the fucking fake fiend even. The, like, I think the really important
This is
part.
this the I think no, I think we can give some context. Like I like the fake fiend thing. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. Um, so this fiend that is killing killing everyone, and they're trying to know how to deal with it. The Saki lose the Psychobuster, and the current situation is that they're at this stalemate between Squealer and his elite guards and the fiend, and Kilomaru, who is butt naked, and Saki and Satoru. And Saki realizes that this thing is not a fiend. This child, this 12-year-old that has been killing everyone, is just a baby that has been kidnapped and educated among the Quirats. And they see the Quirats as her species, and she sees herself as a Quirat. Therefore, the death feedback doesn't apply to her because on the genome thing, wolf inhibition instinct thing, well, this is they don't see humans as their species. They see Quirats as their species. And so, in order to defeat her, they must make her kill a Quirat. And this is how they end up defeating Yakumaru, by having this sick showdown with him, where Kilomaru has his whole head bandaged so that he looks kind of like a human figure, and he points at Quirats that Saki behind him explode with her Kentus, making it look like he's doing it. And this makes the fiend react and blow up his entrails. But before he dies, he unwraps his face and shows to her that he's a Quirat. And she gets the death feedback. And this child dies an agonizing death. Um, which it's a again detail, I know, but it's like it's a sick detail, and I don't know what it says about me, but I find it fucking insane that this show ends the series with the protagonist killing a child.
And then having
I
to
don't
like
know.
convince herself that she didn't. Which that part was
Yeah.
cool. She like starts
Ye-
suffering the death of shame and is like, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it.
yeah.
um time for me to come in and be a pedantic asshole about this detail.
Do it.
Just because it's funny, not even because I think it's necessarily a big criticism. I'm not trying to be like cinema sins here. I just think it's a really fucking funny aspect of this, where the way Saki realizes that this kid isn't a fiend but just thinks she's a queerat. She's like, queerat colonies don't have mirrors, so she's never seen herself. She probably just thinks she's a queerat. When she says that, I'm like, they've
Mm,
never had. She's never been near a body of water. She's never seen a
it's,
reflection at all.
it's really. I think it works because like it happens in a moment of panic, and it's not really how she figures it out.
I mean, that is. She
Like
says
she
that word
like
for word.
she does says that word for word, but she doesn't make the connection of, oh, this is how we should like at this point she doesn't realize that she's not a fiend. I mean, she starts theorizing it, but it's like it is actually part of the things that I have gripes with, where it's like I think the writing kind of puts too much things in the way of the ones that watching at some point. Whatever. I don't have a constructed opinion on it. So in the end, Squealer basically lost his fiend, and well, he stands there defeated. And it's the first time you see him since the start of the war, of the third act. And I really like that shot of him standing over the fiend, because you see him for this one shot having this sort of drip that's very romantic coded, like as in romanticism,
Yeah.
sort of European coat but torn apart that feels very revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
And I fucking like that shot. It's You really get what Squealer at this moment. Squealer is exactly who he is, and he's not the you know evil visor or Japanese looking in Japanese robes looking guy he was before. He's not Yakumaru. He is Squealer.
Mm-hmm.
the That's the beginning of the final episode, that defeat, and afterwards Squealer is in prison, and Saki and Satoru confronts him about what he did and why he did it, and it's basically what we've mentioned before. And I think he's very eloquent in that moment of how, like, you know, existentialist the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
This is We cannot live this way. Of course, we would want to survive. And so the thing that Satoru and Saki wants to bring up against him is like how he's hypocritical. He's saying he did it for all the queer rats, and yet you've sent all your men to die. All your tactics were purposely leading your men to die. And his answer is like, this is all part of the strategy. If there is no victory, then doing the war is meaningless. Victory is the only thing that can make sense. And from a very brutalist, consequence, what's the materialist point of view, it is absolutely true. The moment they start the war against humans, the moment they open hostilities, there is any form of defeat is absolute doom for them. So of course they will be ready to die, because they are ready to die.
Yeah.
This is the whole
I mean, he
problem.
basically gives the fucking speech that like Erwin gives to the scouts in Attack on Titan, where he's like, "Listen, we're fucking dead anyways. So, like, what else are we gonna do
Mhm.
but charge into our deaths in the hopes that our deaths lead to victory?"
Yeah, and in the and this is something that's really interesting. I think is that both the society of the humans is very much, it kind of echoes the other ways that Japanese or Asian authors will describe a society, in that that a society that isn't as toxically individualistic as the one in the West,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like about the us, the minna, in
Yeah.
Japanese. And it kind of echoes that. And Shinsekai Yori really shows of how this us is, it doesn't work, and it's not an actual us. It's more of a, you use this great shadowing thing that is society to justify your own actions. The episode in the hospital, where Saki and Satoru are grouped up with other three people in order to counteract the queer arts insurgency, and you can see how the other adults than Satoru and Saki are acting all in their own selfish manner. But then the girl gets her shit together, but the two other dudes are fucking mess. The leader is just a coward, and you can see that there is no actual camaraderie here. There is an emergency situation, but there is no actual camaraderie among the humans, because this is the damage that has been done to human society over all these hundreds of years of accepting this state of thing where your own kids, their lives, they don't have human rights until they're 17. Until they're 17, they're for the Board of Education to take out.
Mm-hmm.
And this results in a society that is quote unquote utopic and wants to live together and see it, but is actually very, that have grown up individuals that are very scared and that are just not ready to handle like the burden of leadership. Saki's parents, you see them at the beginning of the show, and you see Saki's mother screaming and panicking because she doesn't want Saki to be taken away by the Board of Education. And as the viewer, at least me, when I first watched the show, I had this very disdainful opinion of her and her father that were like basically just more on society's side than they were on Saki. That they were kind of, I thought they were investigating her, and Saki acts very suspicious of them, And so you have this emergency situation with the queerats, and you see how they act. And in fact, of all the adults, those messes, quote unquote, are the ones that, some of the ones that keep their shit together the best, because they actually act out, start gathering supplies and medicals, and then afterwards, when shit hits the fan and they actually reach safety, they go back in there in order to free as many tainted cats as possible to slow down the fiend, even though they know they're doomed to die. And it's like, this is actually the character death that saddens me the most. I think, except the fiend at the end. That one is horrific, but like this, they actually, the fact that Saki's mother was screaming and panicking like that is proof that she had empathy, and that in a way she, transmitted that legacy to Saki. Like,
Mm-hmm.
her parents actually did good in this society. They tried their best. And then you have this comparison of just how much of a mess the individuals are acting in the human society, and then how the queerats are acting. And you can really see that with how Kiromaru handles the situation, of how, every time some shit happens, even Saki and Satoru at this point are at their wits' end and they're like ready to give up. And Kiromaru is like, you guys are too ready to give up right away. We're still alive. We still need to make this happen. Are you not ready to throw down your life here? And that's because the queerats have actually managed to develop camaraderie around them, because they had to, because they had meaning and purpose. It was fucked up because it was survival and the need, but it was real. While after becoming literally gods, humans end up at this mess that can't handle things emotionally.
I mean, I think I like your point about like how in the West we have like a kind of toxic individuality, where as like I think this is a good this is kind of a good commentary of taking like the reality of society in like real Japan to a more extreme. Whereas like, I mean, you know, I'm an outsider, maybe I shouldn't be fucking commenting on this, but like
Me too,
where
by the
we
way.
in America have like a toxic individuality, from what I see in like Japanese culture, they have an almost toxic communal sense. I don't know what kind of
Yeah.
word I would use there. Like, and that is taken to the extreme in this world where the the level of toxicity that people try to not disturb their community and society as a whole, to the point where like, oh, this kid needs to die because they might disrupt the peace, like that's too fucking far. And I do think like that is a solid, you know, a solid thing to explore.
Hmm. But the show is bad. It's a.
Yeah, it fucking sucks, dude.
um.
I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to pick back up my thoughts.
yeah. So I want to talk about the like literal ending here. So basically they were going to just eradicate all of the queer rats after this insurgency. They were like, we can't deal with them anymore. This has shown us that they are uh like untrustworthy and a bigger hassle than they're worth. We're just gonna fucking kill them. And Saki basically talks them down. Um
Hmm.
and we get we get this fucking, because we get this shot where it's like colonies spared and it shows like a list of colonies, and I'm not sure if that's every queer rat colony. So I'm like, are they just killing the other ones still? I don't know, but
In Japan, yeah, they're killing the other ones.
yeah. So it's given some Arcane season 2 climax energy to me, where, you know,
What?
they're they're sparing a few colonies, they're still killing the other ones, but like, are they still going to control them the same exact way?
Oh, oh, it is a bad ending. Don't. Oh, don't. I think to me the show is explicit about it. Like it's in the same way that it's explicit in that, like, of course the Kurats were justified in rebelling. Um, like Saki, basically Saki is in this position of she has things with her for her and things against her. The things for her is that she literally saved Japan. You know,
Yeah.
she was Tomiko-san, which was basically the leader of the district of her favorite. She wanted her to succeed. Um, she has that going for her. The things that she has going against her is that people want the queer eradicated. She does in that episode. Squealer gets sentenced to eternal hell in that with Cantus, his body is modified so that he feels the worst pain imaginable while still living and not dying. And what she does is that she frees him from his suffering by killing him. Um, and she has that going against her. So it's like it is really fun to me to think about how Saki handles things in the future if she becomes head of the ethics committee at all later on. But it's all up for speculation. What she did manage to do was get several colonies spared. Um, how are things going on from there? Well, Saki then afterwards, 10 years later, she lives with Satoru, and she is writing down basically all of the things that the all of the show, because she has been the narrator all along, and she basically writes it down so that even if it's against the rules, she believes that people need to know about this for the sake of humankind and the future. Um, I don't think this is a good ending, quote unquote. Uh, this isn't to me Arcane season 2 ending at all. At least that's how I read it, but
By good you mean positive, not like good quality.
positive.
Okay, yeah,
Like this is a bad ending.
like the bad
you're
ending
you're
of a
supposed to feel
game.
very what I mean, not like a game. It's a weird
I just
analogy.
mean like when you say it's
Like
not a good ending, do you mean like the ending of the show is in
it's
poor
you're not
quality,
supposed to feel
or it's a downer ending?
it's a downer. You're not supposed to feel positive about the ending, at
Okay.
least. It's not a downer, I don't think, because Saki ended up surviving with Satoru, and she has a family with him. So that's good for her. I'm glad for her, but the fucking things with the queer arts is an absolute downer. And as you said before, in the very last episode, they also learned for good that queer rats were never made from naked mole rats. They are not a mutant from the naked mole rats. They were made from humans. They were made from the humans without conscience that were left after the Dark Age, because once the scientists applied their society that prevented themselves from killing each other, then the remaining humans without conscience were the problem, because they could kill the guys without conscience while the guys without conscience couldn't kill them back. And so they literally made them inhuman to be able to kill them, which is again the whole fucking Nazi thing of like the society's need to make people monsters in order to be able to kill them.
Yup. And then Saki kills fucking Squealer under the full knowledge that he's a human and doesn't suffer the death of shame.
Dude, that was freeing him from his suffering. That was an act of
I
mercy.
understand. I understand that, but like when we're talking about it like it's this mechanical thing, like they had to find this loophole. Sure, maybe her loophole was that she was sparing him and not killing him, but I don't know. I I think like one, I think Saki should have died of shame. I understand the argument that she was sparing him and it was probably just a difference of perspective. I think it would have drove the messaging home more for me that she was fully accepting of them as humans, and I think that would have been cool. Also, I think the fact that she and Satoru become like a couple fucking sucks, dude. I fucking hate that, honestly. I I throughout this show, characters have essentially been like bisexual, more or less mechanically, like the
They're
in a game
they're pansexual,
yeah, in a
essentially. I don't
game
want to bring back up the Bonobo article, but basically that's how it works.
yeah, yeah,
Pansexual.
but at this point, aside from like a quick interaction in the war arc between Satoru and Saki, Satoru has been like basically just gay. And I don't know, I think he should have just been gay. Like, that would have been cooler to me.
I
Because,
I agree, but one of the things it's another thing that, and I agree that I feel negative about the marriage too. Actually, I do feel that too, but I think it's on purpose, or I mean, I hope it is, because the one of the things that it's established in one episode is that even though they live in a pansexual society that doesn't um, consider homosexuality or having interactions with the same sex as anything abnormal, they still pair up the students when they're 14, 15. They still want them to get together with someone of the other
yeah, because
sex
they need to
in
breed.
order to start making households, because they need to breed. And I think that being with Satoru was a political thing for Saki, because I think that's the path she's taking.
I vibe with that, but the cinematography of this scene is of them being happily married. And
Well,
they get
yeah.
close to each other and they start blushing and are all lovey-dovey. And if it was just that it was a political thing, I mean, not to say that they couldn't find that love after being pushed together for political means. Like, it feels like a
I agree.
betrayal.
It would have been. I agree. It would have been more it would have been more interesting, especially since like we get some of the best gay sex in anime in this scene in this anime. Uh,
Yeah, between 14-year-olds.
ah! Yeah, man. The last, well, before last thing, I guess we kind of skipped it, but so we mentioned how Squealer was um, in was put in this state of eternal pain. He was also exposed in a museum that was basically themed around the war with the queer rats. So basically, the humans have already made a museum in order to commemorate the thing and stuff. And he was the centerpiece of it, of the museum, still living throughout the glass. You could see the gross organic thing. Uh, he doesn't even look like anything resembling an animal anymore. It's just a lump of flesh. Which again makes me think that it's totally valid. Their feedback didn't work on Saki. Though I guess that ending would have gone hard. The what I wanted to bring up was in 1897, the French troop decapitated the King Truera, and transported his skull in France as a loot of war. I'm translating as I go. The article is in French.
Right.
Sorry if it's not really good. The skull has then been placed in the Museum of Natural History, alongside hundreds of other human remains coming from the Indian islands. So, French Polynesia. I don't know how you say it in English. This region, it's Polynésie française. And yeah, and it has been given back in the efforts of giving back all the stuff we've plundered all those years ago. It has been given back August of last year. Aren't we a progressive society? It happened 128 years ago. And yeah, going back to Shinsekai Yori and seeing that immediately made me think of that. Okay, are we ready to wrap this up?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things like I wanted to say, but I don't know if they really fit anymore at this point. I ultimately
It's already messy. You can go. You can keep going. You know.
I just had a fun podcast story to tell, but at this point we've kind of moved past it. But um I don't know. I ultimately like I when I think about how this ending made me feel, because we talked about it and you had said basically like try and finish it with a couple days before we record so you have like time to think about the ending and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so my plan was to like we're recording this on Sunday and my plan was to like finish it on Thursday, but I had fucking schoolwork to do, and the thought of having to do schoolwork and watch Shinsekai Yori in the same day was stressing me out so fucking much I couldn't do either of them. So on Wednesday, I just was like, okay, I'll watch the last 6 episodes all today because that way I can spend all day tomorrow doing schoolwork and not have to do both in the same day. Because like
Yeah, I get it.
I've had more
I
fun doing
know
my
you don't have
actual
to.
homework over the last 3 weeks than I did watching Shinsekai Yori. When I finished the show, I wasn't like, yeah, like it's I'm happy that it's wrapped up. It was more like I was relieved that it was over. Uh and then I messaged you Friday like
Mm-hmm.
I had a crazy experience regarding Shinsekai Yori last night. Uh and that I'll talk about on the podcast. so
Mm-hmm.
so I've for the last couple months, I've had this reoccurring nightmare where I get hit by a fucking nuclear bomb. Uh, it's only happened
Jesus.
twice, so calling it a reoccurring nightmare may be a stretch, but like it was like it played out in almost the same way, where like it's a dream happening kind of normally, but then suddenly a nuclear bomb goes off near me, and I have to wait for the blast, like the radiation, to kill me because it's far enough away I don't die right away, but close
Fuck.
enough that I die anyways. And because normally in a dream you die, you wake up like right away. At least that's what happens for me if I ever die in a dream. But this is like I watch the bomb go off and then I have to sit there and wait for a couple minutes. Uh the one that I had Thursday night ended up being kind of funny because like I had the experience, like I had the dream, it was really scary, and then I woke up uh and was like, "Oh man, that was scary." But then I had to immediately stumble to the bathroom to drop a fat nuke in the toilet. Uh so it was like, did I dream of getting hit by a nuclear bomb because I had to drop my own payload? That's pretty funny. Uh so I was going back to bed kind of laughing about how comedically well linked those two events were to each other. Uh, and then while I was laying there trying to get back to bed, a little thing about me is that when I've woken up in the middle of the night, it is really fucking hard for me to go back to sleep. Um, so this was at, I want to say, like 1:30 in the morning ish. So I'm laying there. I'm doing my usual techniques of trying to make my brain stop working so that I can sleep. And then I was like, speaking of nuclear power and speaking of shit, I haven't thought about the ending of Shinsekai Yori at all in the last day and a half since I finished it. So I started thinking about it, and it kept me up for another hour while I was thinking of the ending of Shinsekai Yori. And I was thinking about like the things I had just said about how, I think Saki should have died of shame, but I'm also the guy who thinks Buddy shouldn't take the vaccine because she should live with the consequences of her actions. I'm a comeuppance ending enjoyer in
Yeah.
general, but um and I was thinking about how much I hated that she ends up with Satoru, and thinking about, the things I've talked about all this time about how I think this show needed to either be a lot longer or a lot shorter because there's really like two different shows happening here and they don't merge very well, and maybe they do in the light novel, but I'm not going to fucking read that. Uh but the there was something really specifically cuz I had been thinking about um the whole thing argument I've been making where like just because something has themes doesn't mean it's good, because those themes can be executed on better and be more incorporated into what's actually happening in the art. And like I was thinking a lot more about some of these other things that I wanted to bring up. Uh the same way I was kind of thinking about like when they happened in the show. Because
Hmm.
ultimately my take on this show is like, it has a lot of valuable things to say about like you said, colonization and like class fucking um what's the word, like the relationship between like the class and
Hierarchy.
power, yeah, the hierarchy of power. And for me it's just like, I don't know, is this baby's first consideration of class hierarchy? And I think it's maybe a little deeper than baby's first, but to me that is kind of what it feels like, cuz I see like watching this at 29 years old, and um in 2026, 16 years after it came out, I just feel like I've seen so many things before that moved me in very similar ways, but did so without the baggage. And I think like
Mm.
ultimately, you know, I had said early in our like pre-podcast discussion of this where a scene felt to me like this is for like I'm 14 and this is deep, and I it's a very rude thing to say about something, but that is kind of how I felt. And I think there is a value. I'm rambling and it's fucking stupid. My point that I wanted to make is that I do think there is value in I'm 14 and this is deep and baby's first exploration of something. Part of what has been kind of shocking to me through this is going and seeing like reviews for Shinsekai Yori, like whether it be a YouTube video or like the rating on my anime list, which is very high. And my anime list is a pit of degeneracy and horrid, stupid people. So you know, take a rating in it with a grain of salt. But like to me, like this came out in 2012 and it does feel to me like this is the collective anime fandom in the West's first interaction with any of these themes. And I think like I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that. I think it does just get kind of carried by being the first. And I think you know, that's not a bad thing. I think a gateway into thinking about that kind of stuff is valuable. And so I think like, you know, as much as it was a pain for me to get through, I guess I'm glad this exists and existed when it did. If it came out this year, I would just be saying it's shit, no, you know, no no consideration for the other side. But in 2012 when people were still saying anime was dying because Free was coming out and there were gay people in their anime now, which I mean was also happening to Shinsekai Yori because there were gay people in Shinsekai Yori. But in that era where Sword Art Online was the biggest anime ever, you know, there's something to be said about an anime that makes you think about class and hierarchy and how maybe we shouldn't have weapons of mass destruction and be killing each other with them.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I guess it says more about my cultural literacy or whatever than if I held it up in such high regard or whatever. Uh, uh, I don't know, man. I'm glad I watched it when I watched it, and I I d- I can't make the comparisons. I don't have a cultural thing to be able to ascertain what you are talking about. But yeah, that would be valid, I guess. I don't know. it's I experience things very selfishly. I don't really look at the social context in which they. At least this one, I didn't. I never really thought about it. Sorry, I'm trying to react, but I
It's
don't.
okay. I mean, I just made a
I'm
really
kind of a
incoherent
dumbass.
rant. So I appreciate that.
I don't think it was incoherent. I could follow it, or like I could follow it. It's just that I don't know where my feelings land in answer to that.
Mhm.
They're mostly sliding. Uh, I I feel like a snob. It's wow.
In what
I'm
way?
sorry you put yourself through this.
It,
In that I'm snubbing like your argument or something like or like not connecting, I guess.
huh. Wait, did you say
Like
snub or snob?
snob,
Oh, okay.
like snob as in like being a snob, like looking down on something just because it's something. Is
Interesting.
that how you will describe it?
Yeah, well, I was confused by that because I thought I was being the snob here.
Well, you literally put yourself through it. You did not. You literally put yourself through the 25 episodes. Like you.
Listen,
If you're a snob after that, then what the fuck?
My opinions may be shit, but they're my fucking own, motherfucker. I came up
yeah,
with that.
and yeah, and you know what? Same as me, and they're completely different. And
sometimes
I guess I appreciate a lot more like now that you want your anime to be to have good quality, and like I don't know. I guess I, the stuff you said about like it's 14 years old first interesting stuff, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like I really can't think of another media that um like made me think so much. And I no, I can think of BoJack Horseman actually. That would be my next comparison in terms of medias that made me think. But so BoJack Horseman made me self-reflect. Shinsekai Yori makes me think about the world and humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Like to me, and also I wanted to say this, but in terms of comparison of medias we've both experienced, to me, the episode 25 twist at the end and the overall revelation of the dynamics had a more lasting impact than Hunter x Hunter's Chimera arc ending. And like that's I fucking love Hunter x Hunter's Chimera arc.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think like the Hunter x Hunter, and I mean, I'm assuming what you mean by that is like, for me, like the Chimera Ant arc ending is more just like a direct emotional gut punch than really a consideration of like humanity and
The consideration
dynamics.
of humanity is like the rose, basically. You know what I mean, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think that is another thing too. When I say like this came out in 2012, and that's why I kind of think of it as baby's first consideration of this thing, and it's because I think it's more direct, like it's in your face about it. Like I do kind of have to give it props for that, where it is like you know, Naruto is about a lot of the same shit, but Naruto doesn't like tell you to your face this is about class and the hierarchy of power. It tells you,
And also, it doesn't really put it into action. I don't think. Like, I think that like
no,
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
rewatched Shinsekai
it's
Yori, all of the way the characters are acting is always considering that.
yeah, and that's what I'm getting at is like Naruto and stuff like it, which, you know, was the other stuff that had similar themes at the time, were very much like these are themes that connect a battle shonen, and Shinsekai Yori is this is about these themes. And there's value in that. And where I come from when I think about like the cultural context of the time it was released, but also all the stuff I've experienced since then, is a lot of the things that I feel share the same themes are not like saying it as overtly as Shinsekai Yori is. It's just something you got to put on your analysis hat and figure out for yourself. And I think like being a gateway to that kind of critical thinking is cool. And I appreciate that for it. I wish it didn't make me wait 16 episodes for it to be interesting, but you know, there's value to that. I like the one of the things
I appreciate your effort for trying to come up with things positive to say about it.
I mean the thing that might be surprising, like I said it has a very Kojima take on weapons of mass destruction, but that is like essentially what Metal Gear Solid, the whole series, is like about this dynamic of power when someone holds destructive power on such a level that it's like their opponents can't fucking do anything about it. And and it's about whether those things should exist or not. And its take is that they shouldn't, because in every fucking game, you're going around and you're stopping the thing that can launch nukes from existing. And I think that's really cool. And it also comes with some really stupid fucking shit, but that really stupid fucking shit is really fun. The other thing I think of is there's this manga called Mama Yu Yu, which got tragically canceled before it should have. I really fucking loved it. And that also has a very strong emphasis on the dynamics of power and whether like things like that should exist or not. That is a manga about like taking the kind of tropey tale of the demon lord and the hero and thinking about like, well, okay, what is the power at play between these two forces, and like what would it mean for all these different worlds, because it's like essentially a reverse isekai battle royale where the heroes and demon lords from other worlds get sucked into the main world. uh
That's
it's
insane.
fucking awesome. You gotta fucking read Mama Yu Yu, dude. It's so cool.
But
um
but it's been cancelled.
yeah, but it's still got like a pretty
Still
solid
can.
ending.
Okay.
And actually, of all the like canceled manga I've read, there's actually like 5 extra chapters that went into the tankobon releases of it that give it a more solidly fleshed out ending, which was really nice, because like it was already fucking awesome on its own, but like it got canceled so obviously. And things don't get canceled because they're bad in Shonen Jump. They get canceled because it's a fucking hellscape publishing anything in that magazine. Um, but yeah, the basically in that, like, the main hero and demon lord in the world that it's taking place in had decided to stop fighting, and because they had decided that, they lost their weapon of mass destruction, and so the world is like at peace. But that also caused like a disturbance in the multiverse, so like the other ones have to come in, and I don't know, it's fucking cool. That's besides the point. I just like, when I think of like these themes being presented, like I just rather them be in something more enjoyable to get through. To get through.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's yeah. All right.
But that's all I got to say about
I
that.
have one last rant to wrap things up, I
Okay.
guess. Before we close the episode and do the next recommend,
Mm-hmm.
I think. So, Shinsekai Yori shows this new world where, well, a lot of the population has died, but 1,000 years later, every human have superpowers and can affect the world around them. Their cantus essentially functions as infinite energy. They can build easily, make fires and shit. They have even, they don't have criminality, so to speak, that doesn't exist. They live alongside those querats, which are inferior beings that sometimes will do menial labors for them. They live in this world where they are the gods of it. And honestly, I think that the brave new world that Shinsekai Yori presents is a lot like, not in form, but in essence, a lot like those fucking white supremacists and other authoritarian dipshits are wanting nowadays. They dream of a perfect world, a world that is fixed of problem, a world where you can just go to Mars if you don't want to live on polluted Earth. A world where you can just take money away from people in order to make the economy better, and all of that can be at the cost of all morals, all existing morals, the kids' lives, the people's life. And these people, and and in this perfect world that they envision, they also have superpowers. these egocentric maniacs would act exactly the same way the emperors in the Shinsekai Yori would. And yet, when I watch Shinsekai Yori today, and I watch the queer rats rebelling, fighting against all odds, it gives me hope. It reminds me that even in such a world that is so deeply fucked, in which society has become a sort of monster that devours on human species in order to live and self-sustain over humans' lives, and in which every single human has the power to be a god, even in such a world, humans are just as linked to the earth and to natural laws as before. And even in such a world, we, the lowly queerats or whatever our state of being will be, we will still find reason and purpose to live and to actually fulfill our life, even if it ends in despair. I truly think that like we can we can still resist no matter how bad it gets. 1,000 times, one might say, 1,000 years later. Um, and that's the end of our episode. And I was about to say, do you have any plug? But we are not an established podcast channel or whatever.
My plug, like, what else am I working on?
Just the what I listen. Every other podcast I listen to branch out from their ending say.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to plug Mama Yu. You should go read that. Metal Gear Solid,
Let's
all of
go.
them. I've those were on the mind the most just because I've been playing all the Metal Gear Solids for the first time recently. But I want to say, like, yeah, I think that was well put, and I love that that is what you get out of it, you know? I think that is what you're supposed to get out of it. And like I'm going to leave it there, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. It 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 was good. Anyways,
I'm so sorry, Jacob.
well, I'm about to fucking punish you for it, which we already agreed was going to be the course of how this happened before I even knew it was a punishment. Um, so Victor, not a big doer player of horror games. In his words,
By
he
that,
is a
he
quivering pussy when it
none.
comes to them. That's his words, not mine. Um, but I don't think you can do a show covering rancid,
Dude.
rotten things without branching into that territory. So, I'm a big fan of.
So we are playing Slay the Princess. It's a really good horror game. One of my favorite games. It's a light novel also.
Anyways, so I'm a big fan of the Silent Hill franchise, or at least of the original trilogy. I have not branched out very far from those first three games. Um, but last year, a little game called Silent Hill F came out, and I wasn't in much of a rush to play it because, frankly, I don't know. I didn't trust that it would be very good, just given, what I've seen of the other post original 4 Silent Hill games coming out of Konami. But then I heard that it was pretty good, and I want to check it out. And I figure, you know what? We've only covered media thus far that one of us has experienced and the other hasn't. It might be fun to switch things up and get a perspective from neither of us having any history with this particular title going into it. Uh, and I think, I still have the experience of other Silent Hill games coming in, so that is a difference in dynamic there, but like I'm really excited to go into this and basically use this podcast as an excuse for me to spend money to buy Silent Hill F and play through it because I've been looking forward to trying it out. And I'm looking forward to hearing about your experience with it.
Well, I can't say I'm looking forward. Um, I'm still, and I still haven't beaten Witch's House, which I'm kind of using as a baby's first horror game because, I mean, it's not that I snob horror games. Like, I watched plenty of videos about them, you know, about how horror is important in media and stuff. It's just I can't stand watching a horror movie or play a game where I'm alone and in the dark. So that's my punishment.
That's what you fucking get for making me watch a 25 episode fucking anime.
Sorry.
I think, like, I don't know, from what I've heard about Silent Hill F, it might not be as horrifying of an experience because apparently it has like Souls-like combat, which is really fucking weird. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to checking it out. So because don't I haven't played this game, I had to like source where the halfway point of this game was gonna be. Right now, of course, we've almost never actually followed the schedule that we set out to follow um when discussing the different media. Right now the plan is to play until you get to the school section, and that will be what we cover for the first half. I had to source that. I had to ask around in some discords where would be a satisfying halfway point both in playtime and in like a narrative sense. So and that was the answer I
So,
got. So
so what? Say it again.
so you will play until the school section. Silent Hill is very much designated by area historically. So I looked it up, not looking up any like things that happen in it, but school is like the fifth or sixth area out of like 14 or 15, I want to say. So it should be pretty obvious. We'll see if it is. If not, we might just
Okay.
have to discuss it. I'm
All
much
right.
more enthusiastic to get into it, so I'll probably get to that point quicker than you and be like, this is where you stop exactly when this happens.
All right. Well, I'm still glad we went through and recorded the podcast. I wanted to, before we leaving there, I wanted to thank you, Jacob, for, I mean, putting up with it despite everything. I wouldn't have been mad if you had been like, let's cancel everything, but you still went all the way, and I'm thankful for that because got to rant about something that I really like. I couldn't quite. I couldn't quite transmit what I love about it, but I'm glad we got to rant together about the stuff surrounding it.
I
At
mean, I don't
least.
think that's necessarily true. I think, like, when you were talking about what you like about it, I was on the same page. You know, I think I said earlier, I think it's about your tolerance for anime, and I think that's really just what came through here. Like, like I have a significantly lower tolerance for anime or like film that kind of distracts from the things that I like about it. And so, you know, to me that results in a negative experience, but I felt a lot of the same positive feelings that you did, and I think, like, you know, that's a genuinely good thing. Like, I'm glad that we talked about it, and part of me was thinking maybe I shouldn't even criticize the show because like we could have a solid episode where we just talk about the good things about it and it probably would have been more enjoyable of an experience to listen to. But yeah, I don't know. We're getting used to this, you know. This is our sixth normal episode
Hmm.
and we're learning, and I think it was a valuable experience whether I liked the show or not.
Yeah, it was a very valuable experience to me too. Honestly, considering how we were going with this, and like I feel like I still need to learn how to like properly, because I think a structure isn't enough. I need to actually think about how I'm going to lead into things and to properly like g- guide things along. But also, like, I feel like I should have written down, like, I should have written. I wish I had wrote about my feelings on the show and wrote a bunch of stuff that were my own feelings rather than just writing down the quotes that I liked and then talking about them.
Yeah. I mean, I
I,
wrote things that I specifically wanted to say that I didn't end up saying, like that are in my notes. But it's just, that's how it's based on the flow. I really wanted
yeah.
to make the funny joke that whoever cast the spell to remove the memories of Shun must have also cast it on the writers of the first 7 episodes. I really wanted to say that because I thought it was really funny, but, I didn't get the chance to.
It was chaotic. There are things I didn't get to bring up, but there are most of the things that I really wanted to bring up. I'm somehow managed, so
It's
it's
good.
okay.
It's good.
Well, I have no idea how the result is going to be, and how listenable it's going to be. Personally, I'm morbidly curious. I still feel kind of positive overall because I was, well, kind of anxious. Um, thank you, Jacob, for doing this with me. Um, and I guess we'll see you next time on Silent Hill if I didn't run the fuck away.
You will not run.
I think in this game I will run. I don't think it's like Sekiro.
I don't know.
Or is it?
I don't know. I don't fucking know. I haven't played it.
I mean, it's a Silent Hill game. I'm sure I'm going to run away from the monsters.
No, you fight them for sure. Silent Hill, you fight the monsters. Don't get it twisted. You genuinely avoid monsters more in Resident Evil than you do in Silent Hill.
Oh man. All right. Well, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.